Number 15. Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield or the Plainfield Ghoul, was an American convicted murderer and body snatcher. Gein's crimes committed around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, gathered widespread notoriety in 1957 after authorities discovered he had exhumed corpses from local graveyards and fashioned trophies and keepsakes from their bones and skin. Gein also confessed to killing 2 women, tavern owner Mary Hogan in 1954 and a hardware store owner Bernice Wooden in 1957. Number 14. Charles Manson was an American criminal and cult leader in mid-1967. He formed what would become known as the Manson family, a Gacy commune based in California. His followers committed a series of 9 murders at 4 locations in July and August 1969. Although the motive for the murders was disputed by Manson, the Los Angeles County District Attorney believed that Manson intended to start a race war. In 1971, he was convicted of a first-degree murder and conspiracy to murder for the deaths of 7 people, including the film actress Sharon Tate. The prosecution contended that while Manson never directly ordered the murders, his ideology constituted an act of conspiracy. Manson was also convicted of first-degree murder for the deaths of Gary Hinman and Donald Chia. Number 13. Luis Garvito, also dubbed by the media as La Bestia, the Colombian is probably one of the worst serial killers, and he confessed to the torture, rape, and murder of 147 young boys, but the number is believed to be over 300. He was found guilty on 139 counts, which should amount to 1,853 years in prison, but Colombian law limits it to 30, which is why he was sentenced to 1999. He may be released earlier for cooperation and good behavior. Number 12. Tommy Lincel. Hailing from Texas, Tommy Lincel was a prolific serial killer who claims to have at least killed 700 people between 1985 and 1999. In one case, he belunged Elaine Dardine, who was 7 months pregnant at the time. The attack caused Elaine to go into labor and deliver her baby alive. Sells clubbed the newborn to death and also killed Dardine's husband and 3-year-old son during the attack. In the end, a child brought this serial killer to justice. In 1999, Sells broke into a 10-year-old Crystal Searle's bedroom where he proceeded to sexually assault her, stab her, and slit her throat. He killed her 13-year-old friend and left, believing that both girls were dead. Searle survived the attack and was able to escape to a neighbor's house. She later provided a detailed description of Sells, which eventually led to his capture. Number 11. Marcel Petit was a French serial killer that preyed on Jewish refugees trying to flee France during the Nazi occupation. A doctor during the Nazi occupation, he offered to help Jews by giving them medicine to protect against disease. He would in fact inject them with a poison in order to watch them die and then steal their valuables before disposing of their bodies in his basement furnace. After the French liberation, he was arrested and almost 30 corpses were found in his home. When on trial, he admitted to killing more than 60 people and was executed in 1946. Number 10. Gary Ridgeway killed a lot of people. He was arrested in 2001 for 4 murders, but later confessed to killing 70 women in Washington state, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. He was able to avoid the death penalty in exchange for his detailed confession. 5 of his victims were thrown into the Green River, which is what led to his name. He has served being a life sentence without parole following a guilty conviction for 49 murders. Number 9. Richard Ramirez. For more than a year during the 1980s, Richard Ramirez terrorized neighborhoods throughout Los Angeles. Nicknamed the Night Stalker, Ramirez would break into homes and brutally murder his victims, sometimes raping them first. His victims range from early 20s to a 79-year-old woman. His weapons of choice included handguns, knives, a tire iron, a machete, and even a hammer. Ramirez never expressed any remorse for his crimes. He was sentenced to death but died of lymphoma before he could be executed. Number 8. Pedro Lopez's deranged killing spree is terrifying enough, but perhaps even more terrifying is the fact that Lopez's current whereabouts are unknown. The Colombian claims to have raped and killed more than 300 women across Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. At least 100 of these were tribal women. In 1980, the monster of the Andes was arrested and led police to the graves of 53 victims between the ages of 9 and 12. Lopez was found guilty of murdering 112 girls in Ecuador. He also confessed to an additional 240 murders in Peru and Colombia and was declared insane. Incredibly, Lopez was released in 1998 for good behavior, and while there are plenty of rumors, no one can confirm exactly where he is today. Number 7. Joachim Kroll. German serial killer Joachim Kroll murdered at least 14 people, including young children. Between 1955 and 1976, after strangling his victims with his bare hands, Kroll would have sex with their corpses, then cut them up in pieces to eat. Interestingly, Kroll was caught after a neighbor complained about a backup in the plumbing. The pipes were clogged with human guts. When Kroll was arrested, he was in the process of simmering body parts taken from his most recent victim, 4-year-old Marion Ketter. Number 6. Jack the Ripper may be a name that everyone knows, but no one can be certain of his true identity. Whoever he is, or she really was, Jack the Ripper was definitely deranged. In 1888, Jack terrorized the Whitechapel neighborhood of London by slitting the throats and abdomens of at least 5 prostitutes and leaving them for dead. Sometimes he wouldn't even remove the woman's uterus and take it as sort of a prize. It's unlikely that Jack the Ripper's true identity will ever be figured out, but Ripperology, the suggested analyst of the murders, has certainly inspired quite a few what-if novels and films. Number 5. John Wayne Gacy. There's deranged, and then there's the type of deranged that describes the serial killer John Wayne Gacy. He was nicknamed Killer Clown because of his job attending children's birthday parties and charitable events as Pogo the Clown. Gacy was convicted of raping, torturing, and murdering 33 teenage boys over a 6-year period. He would lure them in to his home, kill them via either strangulation or asphyxiation, then bury them on his property. Gacy was executed in May 1994. Number 4. Albert Fish. When a serial killer is dubbed the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Gray Man, and the Boogeyman, it's almost certain he is thoroughly deranged. Fish was tried and found guilty of raping and cannibalizing 3 children in the early 90s. However, he claimed that he had murdered more than 100 children and even boasted that he had children in every state. Especially deranged is the fact that Fish sent a letter to the mother of one of his victims, 10-year-old Grace Spud. The letter detailed how he had lured the girl, strangled her, and then cut her in pieces to eat over the course of 9 days. Number 3. No list of the most deranged serial killers would be complete without Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, was ultimately convicted of murdering 17 young men over a 14-year period. But Dahmer didn't just murder them, he also raped, dismembered, and sometimes even ate his victims. During his trial, Dahmer admitted to drilling a hole into his victims' heads in an attempt to turn them into mindless sex slaves. Although Dahmer certainly would have been executed for his deranged crimes, he was beaten to death in prison in 1994. Number 2. Andrei Chikatilo. Between 1978 and 1990, the Russian serial killer Andrei Chikatilo sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated more than 50 young women and children. One of the youngest was 9 years old. The deranged Chikatilo killed his victims by stabbing and slashing them with a knife. Chikatilo later admitted that he was only able to achieve orgasm by stabbing women, a fact which made it difficult for him to resist his strong urges to kill. Chikatilo was named the Butcher of Rostov, the Red Ripper, and the Rostov Ripper. Though he confessed to a total of 56 brutal murders, he was tried for 53, sentenced to death, and executed by firing squad in 1994. Number 1. Ted Bundy. You don't have to be an American or have been around in the 1970s to know the name Ted Bundy. Bundy is easily one of the most deranged serial killers, not to mention kidnappers, rapists, burglars, and necrophiles of all time. His sick modus operandi included kidnapping his female victims, raping them, and then dismembering them. He often kept their heads as souvenirs. Before he was executed in 1989, Bundy admitted to kidnapping and murdering 30 women throughout his career. Though this number is certainly almost higher, his charm and good looks helped him lure women, and mostly everyone thought of him as a regular person and not the type to carry out the crimes he committed. Got an idea for a video? Submit it to me on my Instagram in the description below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.